All right. Hello, Laurel. Thank you
Hi.
so much for joining me today on Untamed Visionaries.
Yes.
And I don't do formal introductions of people, so I will let you share who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to be
Yeah.
able to be on the show. My name is Laurel Rutledge, and I am the Chief Navigation Officer at LKR Group LLC. And all that means is I help business owners, and in particular, women-owned and women co-owned businesses, navigate the challenges between business strategy and people strategy. Because if you're running a business, right, it's all about people and mission. Mission first, people always. And so what I found through my 27 years of corporate is, and now working with business owners, is normally they have a really great vision. But when you start connecting that vision and execution to people, and you want to go from a founder to actually a CEO, that's where stuff starts to come undone. And so I love what I do. I got out of corporate because it was just time to go. It was really toxic for me. And I knew I could serve bigger and serve better on my own because it's all about service. So, how can I help you as a business owner navigate the waters between getting a really clear business strategy that's aligned with who you are and where you are? And using that clear vision to understand what it's going to take to get to the ultimate goal and what people and skills you need in order to get there. So it's navigating those waters of uncertainty to get you to the goal that you have. So that's what I do, and I love doing it.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. So, as somebody that works in acquisitions, like this is kind of, I feel almost like a key missing part
Yeah.
of, they have the dream of buying the business and then they get in and it's like, okay, now what? What
Right.
do I do now? How do I get better results than the previous owner?
Yeah.
And somebody like you would be invaluable because, you're coming in and helping somebody with, like you said, the P&L to the, what'd you say, P&L to people to product. Like, I
Yes.
love that so much because they're all really interconnected. So
Absolutely.
before we dive into the
Yeah.
business and get into that topic, I want to just ask you, like, as far as yourself and your
Hmm.
business, like,
Yeah.
what are some of the key, almost non-negotiables in your life that are like, these are the things that I have to do in order to be the best version of myself
Hmm.
and to deliver for my clients and to run my business most successfully? What are those kind of key components for you?
Hmm. I love that question. And it's funny because my word for 2025 or 2024 was non-negotiable, right? I'm
Oh, I love that.
non-negotiable about my peace. I'm non-negotiable, right, about my
Yes.
time. And it all to me comes down to something that's critical. So I have a framework called the Alignment Vision Action Framework that I realized once I put the framework on paper, um, is a framework I've been using like my entire life. And then I used it when I was in corporate, and I used it with my
Mm,
clients and have been using it, and never just kind of put pen to paper because usually what I do is very customized, but it's always the same thing: alignment, vision, action, who you are, where you are, what you want, what it's going to take to get there. And so for me, that alignment piece, which I usually take people through using my tree that's in my logo, it all starts
mm,
with a root system. And if you think about how trees work, right, a seed goes in the ground, the roots develop first, which is kind of the nourishment or the nerve center of the tree. Then you get the trunk, then you get the leaves, branches, fruit, flowers, whatever it is. And so as long as the root system is strong, then you get who the tree is, right? Our innate skills and abilities, the things, the skills that we've gathered, that we've grown, that we've developed. And then the branches and the trees and the leaves, that's what we want to deliver to the world. And that may change because if you think about a tree, even evergreen trees, leaves fall off, pines fall off, pine cones fall off, they go back into the ground, they regenerate and re-nourish the tree, and the cycle starts all over. So I have a tree
mhm.
for a reason. And when you talk about the things that for me help me show up and are really non-negotiable for me, it's my root system. It's my big four: faith, family, friends, and health. When my world is upside down, when things aren't running right, when I can't seem to make a decision, when things just feel off kilter, I go back to one of those four. One of those four is not working. I've either not
Mm.
been consistent in how I'm eating or going to see my trainer or doing my therapy. I have not been really hanging out and talking to and connecting with my family and my village, or I'm not really paying attention to my numbers, right? Something in that faith, family, friends, and health is off. And so it enables me with a level of awareness when things aren't working well, to pause and to go back and say, okay, which one of these is off? Am I not doing my devotional every day? Am I not connected to my faith and my faith walk? What is the thing that's not working? And so the non-negotiable for me is maintaining awareness, ensuring that no matter what happens, I am keeping my regular workouts with my trainer, my regular sessions with my therapist, which if you're going to be a business owner, I highly recommend having a therapist because all that stuff comes up.
Yeah.
And
Yes. On
I
speed
have to
dial.
have that. Yes. I mean, those are the non-negotiables for me, really taking care of me, because if I'm doing well, then I can serve my clients better. And I heard something the other day that says you should be serving from your overflow, not from what's in your cup. So fill your cup and then serve
Yeah.
everyone else from the overflow. And I'm like, that's perfect. Perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people want to sidestep that. They want to skip over that part. Like, no, I just need to get up. I just need to make money. And they become so focused on the money that they forget everything else. And I'm like, I was that person too for a long time. I'm just like running, like money,
Yes.
money. And then forgetting
Yeah.
like I have to take care of myself and just,
Yes.
drastically burning out and not achieving the
Yes.
results that I want. And then it's like, oh, I just need to do more marketing. I just need to do more,
Right.
do more. And I feel like that's kind of our mentality in our society today is like, just hustle,
Yeah.
grind,
Yes.
get up at 4 a.m. and, stay up all night and that kind of
Right.
stuff. And I could never get on board of that. I'm like, I guess I'm
Right.
just never going to be successful because I don't want to do that. I value my
Right.
sleep. I do love to get up early and have like my little, my alone time before the rest of the
Yes.
house wakes up. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've become a culture of like, hurry up and just do and get
Yes.
results. And I've found through my own flops of seeing how not having that foundation, like you said, the roots
Yes.
is, like those leaves are just going to fall right off, like it's not going to grow in the way that you want
Right.
it to.
Right.
So I love that. I love
Yeah.
that you have like, you're very clear in your, your big four.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
if something's not working, go back to the root instead of just trying
Absolutely.
to like slap a marketing plan on it.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
more social media.
Yes. I can't even. Right. So
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. If I could be off, my goal ultimately is to be completely off social media. That's my goal. I am on it under duress. A few things I do just to keep up with other people, but I would love to just be non-existent on social media. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I know it's like, I think the message has always been for several, since probably, I don't know, last 10, 20 years. It's like, if you're not on social media, you're not doing it right, or you're not as successful as you can be because you're not on, everyone has to be on social media.
Right.
And I fought that for so long. I just, I have a love hate, I'll get on there and post something if I feel inspired, but I don't want to push content or do certain things just for the sake of doing it and hoping like something works.
Agreed.
I don't know about you, but for me, most of my clients come from referrals and relationships. Like nobody ever really just randomly finds me on social media and is like, take my money. But what works for some people doesn't always work for anyone. So
Exactly.
what are your like your best ways or your favorite ways with, finding new clients and growing your own firm or your own practice?
That's such a good question because I'm completing year 7 of my business. And
wow, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've beaten the odds in a lot of ways.
Yes,
and 2023 was tough, man. It was ugly, and parts of 2024 as well. And when I talk about having a therapist, I've had a therapist for a very long time, and it's really morphed into kind of this business therapy thing, right? And one of the things that I recognize, having spent nearly 30 years in corporate, is while I speak the language of business, it's like I heard somebody say, they had an aha moment. Her name was Dora Rankin. You might know Dora. And she said, I realized I had an aha moment. I am not an online business. I'm a business that has an online presence. And that was really interesting to me because one of the things that has been a challenge for me as I've built this business is client attraction, because and I'm only going to use this word in the context now because it's important for the story. Because I hate to sell, because I hate to be sold to, like hate it with a passion, right? Because we
Yeah.
all have that whole idea of the sleazy salesperson, right? Just sell at any cost. And I work for a big four in consulting, and you're only as good as your last sale. And they don't care if the client actually needs it. You just got to sell it. Well, that is out of integrity for me. If the client doesn't need it, then I am building a brand that says, I don't care about you. I only care about the sale. And when you realize you didn't need what I sold you, that eliminates my ability to serve you at any other time. So for me, I kept pushing to get over this block about selling, right? Like, Laurel, you got to figure out how to sell. You got to figure out how to sell. You got to push through it. You got to make it happen. And I finally had this moment, actually with my therapist. I said, we've been trying to push through this block for 7 years, right? Like, how are you going to do this? What are you going to do to get clients? Because I, like you, have lots of referrals. That's where people find me, is in meeting me. And I said, I've decided that particular S word is no longer in my vocabulary. And I literally do not use it, right? I only use it in this context to explain it to people. I don't use that word anymore. And the reason I don't use the word is because I've gotten really clear and comfortable with what I do and why I do it. And what I do is serve. Every conversation for me is an opportunity to serve. It just so happens my services are an investment unless I choose to give them away. As soon as I made that decision that I wasn't going to use the other S word, I was going to use the S word that works for me, service, I was showing up to places differently. I'm very much an introvert, even though it doesn't seem like it. I present extroverted, but I'm very much an introvert.
Me
And I
too.
don't like showing up and chit-chatting, right? I can't do that. But I also know that when I show up and talk to people, that's when I attract people who need my services. And so if I will go and show up and have conversations, that's how I build a client base. And as soon as I took that other word out of my vocabulary and started showing up and started going other places and started looking at where the people were that I wanted to serve, not where I wanted to, as you said earlier, find the money. No, I want to serve. And if I'm in service, prosperity comes because I am attracting people who need my services, who want to work with me. And I also believe that when I understand what you need, if I am not the right person, I have an incredible referral network and I will refer you to the right person because I'm still in service. Service is about you, not about me. So that's what I've done to really start building, do a better job of building additional clients, because I have a lot of return clients that I love and I get really close to my clients. And so building that additional base has been meeting people, talking to people, building relationships, and also being okay now in year 7 of going back into corporate spaces. And it took me that long to be okay with going back into corporate spaces because it was so toxic for me. And now I go back and I'm working with incredible leaders. I'm still very selective, but working with incredible leaders who are looking to create really great cultures, as well as working with my business owners who have bought businesses or who are building businesses and want to build something successful. So that for me is how I really attract clients, by doing it in a way that honors who I am and not everybody that says you need to post 12 times a day on every platform and have 42 lead funnels and lead magnets and guys. No, talk to people.
Yeah.
Go talk to people.
Yeah, that's I've kind of come to terms on that similar level. It's like the sales. Like I don't even think I use that word very often. When you were saying that, I was like, I don't think I use that word either.
Yeah.
Like, it's up for me. I love in-person networking. A lot of people don't. They just want to do everything online.
Yes.
And for me, I love going to a networking event. And there's a whole different energy that somebody has that walks into a room is like, who can I sell to? Who's my ideal client? Oh, I don't want to go there because my ideal client might not be there, but it's not necessarily about leading with that, because people can smell that on you. They can smell you the minute that you're like hungry for a sale, and people get really turned off by that. And when you walk into those rooms, like with that desperate energy, like I can see that all over people's, it's something that I'm just gifted in. And especially in conversations when it's like, somebody is talking with you and it's just like talk about myself and like they're
Yes.
not letting you have a a word in edgewise, and those
Mm-hmm.
conversations are so draining because they're just like
Yes.
there's a sales pitch at the end of that, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, and I'm like, I just
Exactly.
can't do that. That's so out of integrity with me. And
Yeah.
I'll end conversations like, look, I
Yes.
don't really feel like this is a good mutual conversation. I wish you well. And people
Yes.
get really offended like by that. But it's like, I don't want to waste my time with
Right.
this, hidden sales pitch that I know is
Right.
coming because I can feel it.
Absolutely. And
So,
understanding what kind of events you're going to, right? Because I
yeah.
think there are definitely events that the whole purpose of the event is to sell your stuff. And the
Yeah.
people that go to those events tend to be the people that are pushier. And if you decide to go to events like that, like you got to be ready. On the other hand, if you go to events where there's something about the event that attracts you, I found when I go to those, I have met some of the most incredible people. And while my services may not be important for them, my services are immediately something they think about for their clients, right? That's how you build a business. It's not always about a
Yeah.
direct service. Sometimes it's about someone else knowing about you and their network needing you. And so it's that expansion of what it means to deliver, what it means to serve. And so I'm with you. Go with a different spirit, because you can smell that hustle culture, that grind, that
Yeah.
snake oil. You can smell that from a mile away.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely, I will say networking events, since I kind of had that mindset shift as far as like walking in without expecting anything,
Yes.
just walking into a room to meet people and be open to any opportunity. Because when you're just like, I
Yeah.
got to sell, I got to make money, like you kind of remove yourself from certain opportunities that may pop up because
Right.
somebody you talk to may know somebody that knows somebody that's like, oh, that's exactly what they need.
Yes.
And it's just a whole different mindset.
It
And I
is.
mean, I've been through sales courses before, and
Yeah.
I just quit. I'm like, I don't want to have a script. I don't want to
Right.
have like sales calls and
Right.
get on the phone with all these people and with the intention of like, I have to do this sales strategy. And if they say
Yes.
no, I need to like come up with something else to say, slap on
Wow.
another sales strategy so that they'll say yes. Like, I'm not in the business of convincing people to hire me. Like,
No.
we'll have a conversation, we'll talk. If you think we're a good fit, great. Like, I'm not
Right.
going to be like, why, or try to like
Yes.
counteract all your no's. Like, if it's a no, it's a no. And
Right.
if you don't need my services, like there's lots of people out there that do.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, especially maybe this may be a little gender biased,
Yeah.
but I feel like, um, especially with women, I've been in
Yeah.
a part of a lot of women's group, and they are
Mm-hmm.
like sharks, some of them, because that's
Yes.
all they have ever known. They took a sales course and they're
Yes.
just like learning all these sales strategies. And it's like talking about me, and what I sell
Yes.
and what I sell. And then you try to talk with them and they're just like not interested in what, that
Yes.
mutual conversation. And I've had a lot of experiences like that. They're just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like you can just like
Yeah.
feel it in the room. Like this is one
Yeah.
big, huge sales pitch from like 50 different women. And,
Yes.
they just kind of all buy from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I think you learn as you go, like
Yeah.
what rooms you want to be in, and you want to be in
Absolutely.
those like authentic rooms that are all truly about, helping each other instead of
Exactly.
just who can I get $1 from today.
Exactly. And to your point, I saw this this post one time that said the biggest mistake you're making in selling is sending that email that says follow up. Just following up, just checking. That's the worst thing you can do. You're giving away your power. The email you need to
Oh,
send is,
I've seen
we had a
those. Yeah.
conversation a while ago. Where do we go from here? And all I could think was, out of my inbox is where we go from here. Right? That's where we go. You see,
To the trash.
no, because you've shown me who you are, right? So you're exactly right. You said it exactly right. Find out who you are and how you want to serve, and find the thing that works for you. I don't like pushing people into selling. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Because I'm not doing the work. I'm guiding you to do the work, right?
Yeah.
If it's a no, it's a no. And you're not ready. It's okay. I'm not going to guilt you into spending kidney money when you're not ready.
Yeah. You know what
And I'm not going to
my
force you to spend
least,
kidney money with me. That's not what we do here.
yeah, my
Yeah.
my least favorite question is like something along the lines of like, you know, how much money would you lose if you don't do this kind of thing? You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, how much would this be
Yes.
worth to you? And it's like, I
Yes.
can't like, how much would it be worth to you if you had 5 new clients every single month? I'm like, I don't know, $1 million, but I'm not going to pay you $1 million for that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I hate that question because it's always
Yes.
like trying to box you into a yes. And I'm just
Absolutely.
like, I don't get on sales calls typically like that anymore. I
No.
mean, I don't even, if somebody schedules a consult with me for on my end,
Right.
it's just it's a conversation. Like we like each other, we
Absolutely.
don't like each other. There's lots of financial due
Exactly.
diligence providers out there. If you want to go to another
Yes.
one, great. It's like
Exactly.
nobody wants to deal with that. Like, are you
Right.
ready to do right now? Like a lot of my
Yeah.
buyers, like their deals get dragged out for a while. They have to wait for the offer to
Exactly.
be accepted. There's a lot that has to take
Mm-hmm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
Sending follow-up email. Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Like nobody
Yeah.
wants that.
No.
So, but
No. And I want the check-in to be genuine. Like I have people that I just
yeah.
met with someone not too long ago that we literally met months, almost no, almost 2 years ago. And I had sent her a note like 6 months in, never heard anything. She actually followed up with me, which tells me the tech was weird, right? And it was great because I'm like, I just thought you were awesome. So just wanted to connect with you. And it turns out not only am I going to be doing some work with her, she actually referred me to someone else because the reach out was genuine and I really just wanted to know how she was because I thought she was cool. And so that's the kind of thing
Yeah.
I think we forget sometimes is why are you connecting with someone? And even if you go to one of these networking events, instead of feeling like you have to work the entire room, I had a really good friend of mine tell me, who's also extremely introverted and has an incredible business. And she said, Laurel, I just had to tell myself, I am not here to meet everybody in the room. I am here to connect with the one person that I'm supposed to serve in whatever capacity that is. That could be connecting them with somebody else. That could be doing something for them. That could be whatever. But I'm here to meet the one person. I'm not here to meet everybody in the room. And I thought, you know what? That's a great mindset, right? Because you're exactly right. Sometimes deals take longer. Life happens.
Mm-hmm.
If it's meant to
Yeah.
be, it's already yours. Don't push it.
Yeah. And you never know, like I never, I'm an accountant. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to assume somebody's budget. Like I've had
Right.
people say to me, like, I'm sure you can stretch your budget just a little bit, Shauna. And I'm like, done. Like
Right.
you have no business in my bank account. You don't know
Right.
anything.
Exactly.
And for me, I'm very much an intuitive person.
Yeah.
I don't make decisions on sales calls.
Right.
If I'm
Me
interested
neither.
in somebody's services and we have a conversation, I'm not making a decision right then and there because
Right.
I like to allow myself to process what we talked about
Yes.
and tune into myself because the only
Mhm.
one that has any answers is myself.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people ignore their gut feeling
Agreed.
because they've been persuaded in sales calls and they didn't take the time. And sure, we can talk ourselves out of things. I talk myself
Of course.
stuff all the time. But
Right.
if it keeps lingering on my mind,
Mm-hmm.
I check in with myself and
Right.
say, what should I do? And so many people are out seeking validation outside of themselves and asking, they're polling on social media. What do you think I should do
Yeah.
about this? It's like, what do you think you should do about this? Because I feel like we have all the answers inside of us.
I agree.
We're just too afraid to trust ourselves.
Agreed.
And I've been through that experience. I've worked with a lot of different people and I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it because I felt pressured to do it.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't stay true to myself. I
Right.
knew, like, hiring coach after coach. It's like, Shauna, you already know what to do. You're just not doing it. That's the problem. You're the problem.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
That's the power of knowing yourself, getting that therapist, right? Having all the coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists, accountants need accountants, right? It's okay to seek guidance and understand that the guide should truly be the guide back to what you already know. They're the mirror. They're the conduit.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's different. That's different.
Very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that mirror thing is something a lot of people don't realize is like,
Right.
people that come into our experience can be a mirror for us, but a lot of people are
Yes.
just too afraid to see that.
Agreed.
But yeah, like I already know the vision and everything. For me, it's just like having somebody kind of, if I'm roadblocking myself, because I love to do that,
Don't we
calling
all?
me out of my crap and saying, hey, Shauna, like you're the problem here.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the guidance that I know for me personally. And like you said, when you know yourself, you can kind of figure out what the solution needs to be.
Absolutely.
And, it always just comes back to home for me. I know and a lot of that too was therapists, it's like, you already know, but you're just like refusing to accept that you already know, like trust yourself.
Because we want it to be something different, right? Or we're looking for the silver bullet, and the silver bullet doesn't exist, y'all. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Just, like the health and wellness industry, take this new pill or shake. And it's like, that's not the solution. It's never long-term. It's always here. Like, what are you doing every day to, eat well, exercise, and that kind of stuff. So I feel like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And, how do you serve clients when you can't serve yourself? How can a client trust you if you don't trust yourself?
Right.
And those are hard sometimes to accept.
Yes.
So,
and it's funny you say that. I have a mantra that's right on my screen that says that I see every day. One of them, I have 3, but the top one is trust yourself. In this moment, you are enough. In this moment, you have all that you need.
Love that.
Yeah.
I need something like that.
Yeah.
Good little reminders just all over the place. Because we forget. We forget how amazing we are. We forget how capable we are, how enough we are. And that's always good to have those reminders, especially if you have people in your, family in your life, and saying like, hey, I tell my husband this all the time. Like, I might need you to remind me how awesome I am, because I'm not feeling it today.
Exactly.
And he's always my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah,
so
that's so awesome.
Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with the right people is really important. Being they say you're the product of the 5 people that you're surrounded with. Absolutely. And that was an eye-opening thing for me, because I'm like, well, it's really just me and my kids. I probably need to get out more.
Yep. And if you're a business owner, how can you surround yourself with other business owners who have some of the same philosophies you do, right? The same values that you do, because business values can sometimes differ a little bit from personal values until you're a business owner. And then they are very well aligned if it's your business. But surrounding yourself with people who get that whole business owner, entrepreneur journey, because my village is strong, man. The people in my village, they are ride or die. They are. And very few of them are entrepreneurs. So they will do whatever I need. They lift me up. They put me in check. And they haven't walked this walk. So adding to that village, people who've actually walked this walk and understand what that means is so powerful. So as you're working with people, and I'm sure you see it all the time that are buying these businesses, it is important to surround yourself with folks who've kind of been down that road, that are trustworthy, right? And that operate in your level of integrity, whatever that is. But surround yourself with those people who've done the walk too, because there's a lot of learning in that can help you avoid some pitfalls that you don't necessarily have to step into, right? If you have the right people around you.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I recently joined a women's acquisition group as a sponsor, because I wanted to be a part of a group of women, in the acquisition industry. Like, I will say it's very much male dominated. You go to a conference about acquisitions, it's all men, mostly speakers. And this amazing woman, her name is Becky. She started a women's acquisition group, and I was like, sign me up immediately. Yes. I know it's a small group right now. It's growing, and like, there's just not as much support for women in this space. And, women and men, we're very different. We operate differently. And so like having women in my circle that I can go like, hey, I'm having this issue. Who can I talk to? Do you know somebody? And, being in the space of people that are kind of doing the same thing. Cause I tell people like, yeah, my husband and I are looking to buy a business. They're like, what? Just start one. And I'm like, well, I already have one. But this is something that's unique for us that we want to do. And there's just a lot of people that don't get it. They don't understand it. why would you do that? They didn't even know it was a thing.
Right.
So being a part of, having that village of people to cheer
Yes.
you on, because we got burnt out over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
We quit looking. Actually, no,
Yeah.
it was after the summer. We kind of
Mm-hmm.
quit looking because we just kept running into issue after issue, and we're
Right.
just like, we need a break.
Right.
We don't know anybody else that's like doing this, and so it's
Right.
kind of just like
Mm-hmm.
venting back and forth to each other about the process. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
community is really important,
It's
and
huge.
really being surrounded by people that maybe have already done it instead of
Yes.
people that are like way further behind you,
Right.
because then you're kind of a lone ranger again when
Right.
if you're at point F and they're at point A,
Yes.
you're at different things. And I found that the people that have already kind of done those things and have
Yeah.
those experiences, that's so much more helpful than being able to learn and from each other's mistakes or,
Right.
or experiences. So,
Absolutely. Agreed.
um, yes. So, okay. So as far as what you do,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about, so I work with a lot of business
Mm-hmm.
buyers. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have never owned a business in their
Right.
life. They've come from being, an employee,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they're about to step into buying a business and
Yeah.
operating that. And a lot of them have the goal of, like, they don't really want to buy a job. They're
Right.
buying the business for lots of different reasons, tax
Yeah.
strategies,
Mm-hmm.
wealth creation. It's a great pathway for those.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really looking to like not work 40, 50 hours a week anymore. And they're looking to, step in as a new owner. And some of them
Right.
want to be super involved, and other ones are like, I want to get this, offloaded to a general manager ASAP.
Right. Right.
So I'd like to talk with you, like, how do you work with people? I know you help
Right.
with,
Mm-hmm.
that foundational piece
Yeah.
and getting them in a position to where they can actually scale the business,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the buyers, they're going to want better results than the
Right.
previous owner was getting, right? We have a debt
Right.
service that we have to pay.
Yes.
We purchase that business, it's usually millions of dollars,
Yes.
and we have very little room for a lot of error.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when I do financial due diligence,
Mm-hmm.
I try to like put together any kind of strategy plan that I can
Right.
from a financial perspective, but also from
Mm-hmm.
an operations perspective. I've
Yes.
been investigating businesses for 20 years, so I know
Yeah.
like the inner workings of all of it and how it's like all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be some advice for you as far as, okay, somebody just bought a business, they've been an employee their whole life, they step in the
Right.
driver's seat, like now what? Like how would you be able to
Right.
help somebody make that transition successful and then scale
Mm-hmm.
that? 'Cause they're wanting to like drastically increase revenue and
Right.
their bottom line. So
Right.
how would you, assist somebody in doing that?
Well, I think the first thing, in working with someone like you who gets the finance and the operations piece, that is really key. And I would encourage
Yeah.
them, once they decide that they want to buy a business for whatever reason, like you said, tax strategies, wealth creation, freedom, time freedom, is
Yeah.
to not be ashamed to ask questions. Because what I find a lot of times when I get in with people who bought a business and they're trying to figure it out is they didn't ask questions in the beginning, right? They just assumed they knew. So this is not the
Yeah.
time when you buy a business to be afraid or to feel shame about what you don't know. You need to know everything. So ask the question. So that's the first thing. So now you've bought the business. You have whatever debt structure is there. And the usually what I end up talking to people about is you have bought something that is working. What you need to be very clear on is it working because of the people that are there, or is it working because the business itself is a good and well-run business? Because those are two different things. If it's working well because of the people and the people's relationships, you need to understand how that organization is structured, what it is about the relationships and how they build them, and what that means for you in terms of long-term scaling or long-term scaling. Because if you don't have the relationships, then you got to figure out how to build them or how to ensure that you can trust the folks who now have a change of ownership, that they are going to stay and continue to build those relationships for you like they did for the previous owner. I'll give you an example. When I worked for a casket company, we were looking at doing a purchase. And when we started looking at all of the contracts and things, there was some clauses in there that were like, you have to pay somebody a certain amount of money if you want to enforce their non-compete clause. So crazy stuff, like non-competes are non-existent today, but they existed back then. And what we realized when you're looking at that purchase, at least when the business that we were in, is we weren't buying product, we were buying relationships. We were buying a sales force. So if the sales force went away, the value of the business we were buying just went away. So the first thing I work with these owners is, where is the value created in the business? Is it in the product? Is it in the process? Is it in the people, or in what combination thereof? So that you are really clear, all about clarity. Then, as a new leader, especially if you come out of a W-2 kind of role and you may not have led big teams or been responsible for not only ensuring the work got done, but you're also responsible now for payroll, you're responsible for managing performance, you're responsible for hiring, you're responsible for all of the things. As a leader, how do you step back and say, let me go evaluate what I'm trying to accomplish, what skills are needed to accomplish that? Do I already have the skills in place? And where I do, how do I keep those and continue to build them? And where I don't, where do I go get them? So it's really being strategic and unemotional, strategic about mission first, people always. So so going back, it is, where's the value driven in the business? And then how do I ensure I'm creating a team that continues to build that value? And then the third thing I work with them on is, you got to get really clear. If what you're telling me is, I didn't want to build a job, I want a business, you've got to get really clear on what level of control do you want to maintain and what level of control are you willing to give up? Because people will say one thing and behave differently.
Yeah.
You be really clear on that, right? And then, do you have the people in place that enable you to give up the kind of control that you want? So if you have a general manager, is that general manager someone who is great with relationships but really bad with people? So you're going to have some kind of attrition that's not going to be able to help you really keep the business going. Do you have a general manager that is really, really great, but they're also irritated because they didn't get to buy the business? And are you going to be able to trust them to be able to keep the business going the way you want to build it? It's all of that in the internal workings of the organization. And so as you look at that based on the existing business, because before you want to scale, you've got to be able to run the business now and not have a decrease in revenue, right? It's kind of like you said, people buy it and they immediately want to scale. Sweetie, I need you to be able to start running it first. Mm-hmm. Like, don't lose first, right? Don't lose customers. Don't lose employees. You need to learn how to run it first. Go slow to go fast. Run it well. Then really focus on what scaling means to you, what you're willing to do to scale, who you need to hire to scale, and then put a plan in place to scale. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Run it, understand it, decide how you want to scale it, then plan to scale. It's methodical, right? And often people who buy businesses sometimes think, and I won't say it's untrue, but it's not as true as they think it is. They think that by buying a business, they've automatically skipped a bunch of steps that you would have had to go through if you built a business. You still have to go through the same steps. Really learning your product, really learning your service, really learning your people, really learning your customers. It just so happens you may have infrastructure that's already there that you don't have to build yourself. But all the other stuff, you can't skip those steps. So learn how to run it, then think about scaling it. Because if you go in scaling, you're going to lose your people. They're not going to understand the change. You're going to be overstepping them, especially if it's a family-run business. They know how they've been doing things for years. You're a new person, and you want to change stuff. You've just lost them. Go slow to go fast.
Yes, I love that, because a lot of people will step in and be like, all right, we're making a bunch of changes, and then you have that fear of like, oh my gosh, am I going to get fired? I see posts on social media all the time like, the business that I work for, it's selling. I need to find a new job ASAP. And I'm thinking,
Yes.
if they've set that precedent already that you're going to get fired, like that's crazy to me. Like
Me
retain the
too.
people that have built that. Sure, there
Yes.
may be extra people in there that, maybe it's a family member that just got plugged in, but like
Absolutely.
I'm a firm believer of like not making drastic changes in that
Right.
first 90 days
Yes.
unless it's like critical to the success, the cash flow of the business. But
Absolutely.
you got to get in there and understand and
Yes.
see how everything functions first before you just
Yeah.
kind of like start slinging guns and,
Oh,
changing this, changing that. And I know
absolutely.
a lot of the acquisition gurus like day one, we're making changes, we're injecting marketing plans and automation and da, da, I'm just like, what about the people? What
Yes.
about that whole
Yes.
transition and learning how everything
Yes.
works before you start making changes? I'm a big fan of automation. Sometimes
Me
it
too.
doesn't work, like, but if you try to automate something that is fragile already, like somebody that's trying to
Yes.
automate it and the data's wrong, like your automation
Yes.
is pointless if everything else that's being automated
Yes.
doesn't work.
Right.
So I understand the desire to hurry up and kind of get that
Right.
business functioning without you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go too fast,
Right.
that's all going to fall apart
Right.
because, like you said, go slow to go fast.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of really the message and what that I want to share with people is like, it's
Yeah.
not as quickly as, jumping in the driver's seat and start making
Right.
hundreds of changes before you even know anything.
Right.
Uh,
Exactly. And you
that I
mentioned
feel
it.
like is a risk. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, and and because of where we both came from, you've probably read it too. There is a book, it's an old book, but there's a book called The First 90 Days, right? Yes, people use it in corporate, and it's about, when you become a new leader or something, but it's called The First 90 Days. That would be a great book for new business owners because it talks about what do you do in the first 90 days. Anybody who
Yeah.
buys a business should spend the first 90 days listening,
Yeah.
learning, engaging, building relationships, right? And then understanding the importance of change management. You touched right on it. You come in and you're just ripping things apart. The biggest piece of those listening things, I always talk about listening actively. Ask lots of questions, be curious, even if you're not a curious person. Even if you think you know better than anybody else that's been running this business for 50 years. That's good. And I will not say whether that's right or wrong. What I will say is, even if you believe that, if you spend 90 days really being curious and asking questions, most people don't do something just because. There's usually a reason. And if you at least understand the reason, then you can understand what, if anything, needs to be changed. And you can develop a really great argument and or business case for changing it that helps people get there, right? It's about taking the time to understand so that even if you don't agree, at least you can shore up your own argument. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I agree. And understanding, because it's easy to have, like an idea of
Yeah.
how you want everything to look and you want it to be automated and you want to be able to only check in, once a week and, be mostly absentee. But
Mm-hmm.
without knowing maybe what's, like the saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yes.
A lot of people, because
Right.
there's a lot of gurus teaching like do this and do this and do this and
Yes.
like a cookie cutter approach. Take our method, slap it on that business, and then you can walk away in a few months. And I'm just like, like,
No.
I don't think that's going to work out.
No.
I mean, in theory, it sounds like a good idea,
Right.
but I feel as though like the wheels are going to fall off at that point
Yes.
because people aren't going to trust you. If all those
Right.
employees get up and leave, what are you going to do then? If your largest customer, one of the things that I look at in due diligence is customer concentration risk.
Yes.
Do you have one customer that makes up 50% of your revenue? If you
Yes.
do, that is a concern. What is the
Yes.
business going to be valued at if that
Mhm.
50% customer walks the day that you
Right.
become the new owner? Now
Exactly.
what? You have this debt service that you can't manage because
Mhm.
that customer walked away. And so that would be my first, the people, the people inside the organization, and then that
Yes.
customer. That would
Yes.
be, a priority of like, you come in and start slinging and making changes,
Yes.
that customer may walk. just
Yes.
because of those changes alone. So that's a
Yep.
very sensitive area for people to pay attention to,
Yep.
because the changes don't always just affect employees. It can be your customers, your vendors.
Yep.
What if your biggest vendor walks because they don't like you personally?
Exactly.
What's your
Yeah.
contingency plan then? Because
Yes.
I'm seeing right now, like a lot of these businesses on the market are extremely overpriced. And
Mm-hmm.
that's always a concern because if
Yeah.
you're already walking in paying way too much and one thing like that goes wrong,
Yes.
one wheel falls off,
Right.
you lose your biggest vendor, your biggest customer, or 4 of your employees walk,
Right.
then
You're
we have
done.
a series of issues.
Right.
And that, it could have been business for 60 years, 40, 50,
Yes.
60 years,
Yep.
but it's held together.
Yep.
And if you want to make changes, I think it's important to understand how it's held together
Yes.
first before you start
Yes.
going, inject this
Yes.
and cut this out and slash spending and, all those kinds of
Yes.
things.
As you
So,
said, you said it earlier, right? What are the processes? You don't just go in and automate everything, right? And some things don't need to be automated. Some things need high touch. Other things, why are you hand doing invoices, right? Like there's
yeah,
some things that can be automated that make sense for efficiency, but even in simple things like that, that person has been in that organization for 30 years doing handwritten invoices. They know where all the bones are buried. It
hmm
might make sense to kind of bring them along to automation, understand why they do that, because it is possible that their entire being, their entire value is tied up in that job that they do. And they feel important because of what they know. And if you have just spent your life savings buying a business, and hopefully you have someone like Shauna who is telling you the truth about that business and doing real due diligence, because not everybody does that,
I know, I can't believe
then
it.
I can't believe it, right? Then why would
Yep.
why would you go into something that you spent your life savings on and not take the time to actually learn it and love it and figure out how to do it the best way possible to get to what you want? And because leadership is getting things done with, through, by, and for other people. So if you're buying a
Yeah.
business that's got people in it, it's that connecting of the business strategy with the people, and the people piece usually is where things start to fall down. You can fix people, you can fix processes, you can fix systems, you can do all of those kind of things, but the people piece, connecting to your vendors, connecting to your customers, connecting to your
Yeah.
employees, if that goes away, it's not 40 or 50 hours a week, it's 60 to 80
Right. Or more. Yeah.
or more.
That's, that it goes back to the very first thing that you said is ask lots of questions,
Yeah.
ask everything, learn everything. And that's such a vital part of the due diligence period that, I mean, when I attend these acquisition events,
Mm-hmm.
like they skim over that part. They skim, like they'll spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on the financial piece. And I'm just like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, like to me, like that's the whole financial piece. And then
Yes.
your customers, your vendors, your employees are all attached to that. If you just kind of
Yes.
skate past that part, I mean, I just can't get my head
No.
around the idea of doing just hurry up and buy a business and get your
Right.
your tax deductions and get your tax liability reduced. Just hurry up,
Yes.
there's tons of them out there, just buy one. And I'm like, well, first of all, they're overpriced, so slow down.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
you got to be careful
Right.
and know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And as part
Yes.
of what I do is like, I don't care if it's financial related at all, I'm asking the question.
Yes.
Buyers typically don't have advocates for themselves. They have a lawyer, they have
Exactly.
an accountant. But for me, I'm like, I'll ask any question that you want. I'll get on the phone with the seller and ask him, about this specific situation. It's always
Absolutely.
attached to a number, money somewhere
Right.
along the line. It is.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
one of the pieces of feedback that I hear from a lot of people that have purchased a business said, I wish I would have spent more time in due diligence. I didn't ask enough questions. I really didn't have any idea what I was getting into.
Right.
And a lot of those people just, hired the cheapest due diligence person maybe they could find just to like look things over. And I'm like, I don't even offer a look over service. Like we're
No.
doing it right, or I'm not doing it at all. Because I don't want that to come back on me. But also I don't want somebody to walk into something and have the wheels fall off, because
That.
I couldn't sleep at night. And so it's not even just about the numbers are important. Yeah, you got to have cash flow to
Yes.
survive. It's the oxygen to the business, but so are the people. So are
Yes.
your customers, so are your
Yeah.
vendors and the relationships and the business, how it's functioning
Yes.
now. Like, sure, you can
Yes.
make improvements, but it's kind of like a lot of people want to hurry up and just like make it really successful so they can move on to the next
Yes.
deal and go find another one.
Yes.
And like, I just feel like there's so many, like we're talking about, like issues that
Yes.
can populate from that. Um,
Absolutely.
so as far as coming in and understanding, okay, how do I actually scale this business?
Yes.
Um, what are some of the ways, like specifically, we already talked about kind of like that
Hmm.
foundational piece,
Right.
but somebody's coming in, they're buying
Hmm.
something. What do you think are like the top like two or three
Hmm.
like professionals or areas that are really important
Right.
to maintaining the success of the business,
Right.
and then stepping into like how do we start kicking things up a notch? Like who do you think
Exactly.
like people should have on their team, I guess is the
Right.
question.
So to me, there are a few positions that are really key. You need to have a really strong financial person because money's got to come in the door and it's got to be right and it's got to be recorded right because there's real pain and money associated with not doing your finances right. Got to have a great financial person, right?
Thank you.
I'm just saying I don't want to write those big checks, right? So because
Yeah.
because ignorance is not an excuse. The IRS doesn't care that you didn't know you were supposed to do quarterly taxes. They don't care, right?
Yeah.
Get a good financial person. You also need good legal counsel, both corporate legal and employment legal, because again, those fines are huge. So are you doing the right thing? If you have customer contracts, if you have vendor contracts, what are you doing? If you bought a business that has IP, how are you protecting the IP? Did it automatically go to you? Do you automatically own the trademark? Did you pay what you needed to pay to get that, right? So you need to have an exceptional financial person, exceptional legal counsel, and then you really need the top three, and then you need a people person, whether that's insourced or outsourced. You need somebody who can help you again from a compliance perspective, but also from a culture and fit perspective. You need somebody on your human resources side to help with structure, compliance, hiring, those kind of things. So those are kind of your baseline, just regular operations. From a scaling perspective, it is really important for you to understand how the business is built. Is it built because if it's a service business and it's relationship driven, what kind of salespeople do you have or how do you sell? If it's product driven, is your product so solid that the product doesn't need to change, it just needs to continue to function, or do you need innovation in the space? So your scaling will be very dependent upon what business you bought and what the market expects of that type of business. If you bought a restaurant, right, that's really about compliance and cleanliness and staffing and all of that. Scaling means you're getting more people in the door to eat, and maybe you open multiple locations, which means you really need a realtor and you need really great attorneys and you need great staffing. If you bought a service or a product, you've got development costs, you have got market trial costs, you've got those kind of things that you need to think about. So when I start working with somebody on scaling, the first thing we talk about is what is the business and how does the business thrive? How do you get customers, and what do the customers expect of the business? Existing customers and potential new customers expect of the business. How do you scale that? So you look to scale existing if possible, right? Not just through price increases, but actually scale the business, because price increases is an option, but that's not going to get you there. How do you scale existing? But then does scaling in your business require change or addition, right, or expansion of your product or service lines? And if so, again, is proper prior planning prevents poor performance. What does that mean? What does that look like? And most important, what am I willing to do, time, energy, or money, to get to that thing? And you got to be honest with yourself if you're the owner. If you don't want to spend the time to innovate, then you just got to be ready that you're either going to scale really slow or you're going to be kind of just an existing, good, stable, it's going to feed your family business. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are intent upon scaling, you have got to decide what you are willing to do to scale, because scaling takes resources, time, energy, and money. And you have to be willing to put in the time to get focused on what scaling means and what it's going to require for you to scale, whether it's a service or a product. The market research you have to do, the testing you have to do, the sales outreach you have to do, the networks you have to build, the relationships you have to build. It is time, energy, and money to scale. And you do that based on what scaling means to you. And I think most, like you said, most people come in and say, I want to build this business. I want to be out of it in 6 months. So I've got to build it to, I've got to double the revenue in 6 months. Okay. Anything is possible, but to scale to where you're out of the business in 6 months, what did you buy? What is that going to take? And can you trust that that is not only scalable, but sustainable, right? Not everything you scale can you sustain, because that's a different level of people. That's a different level of cost. That's a different level of effort when you go from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business to an 8-figure business. Everything grows. Yes, the top line grows, but those costs grow too. So profit doesn't always grow at the same rate as revenue or expense. So you got to know your numbers. You got to know where you want to go, and you got to get really clear on what it is you're wanting to do. So I tell people, if I'm working with them on scaling, let's figure out what scaling really means for you. Number one, is it a product or a process, right? What does that look like? And then in that process of, if it's product, is it really an innovation on the product, or is it a new product, right? So it's kind of like a decision tree. I take them down a decision tree, and then you pick one. Pick one. We're going to do this first. We're going to innovate a new product because we're going to put money in that. We really think it's great. We've done the research. Or nope, what we're going to do is we're going to build our customer base, because we know we want some other things down the road, but we need to build our prominence in this space. We want to be the provider of choice for X. So scaling for us is more clients, broader clients. We're national and not regional, right? That is an effort that makes sense, because it builds you a base that people trust you to do things that are innovative. You can't always innovate if there's not a base of trust, right? So that's how I talk people through kind of the scaling. Let's get clear on what it is. Let's get clear on what it takes, and then let's make a plan.
Yeah. I almost feel like it's a buzzword now, scaling, and everyone thinks it's just so easy, and you just slap in some automation and open up a new location and you're good. But one of the things that, and, forgetting that it's sometimes hard to find certain, employees in certain spaces. And one of the things that I've found with helping people in the due diligence period is they aren't prepared for the capital that they're going to need to do all of that. And so one of the things where I'm so strong in telling people to make sure they understand how the business is priced, because a lot of these brokers and sellers are pricing their businesses way too high, and you're going to have this difficult time injecting capital into the company to scale, to do all of these things that you want to do, when you have completely tapped out your working capital line of credit initially, and you've overpaid for the business, and it's not performing at the same level that you expected it to. They'll price it based on current results, right now, and just don't worry that we had a loss last year. It's not a big deal. I'm seeing this so often. These brokers try to explain why it's I'm like, no, it's not going to work. And so I think people forget how much time, energy, and capital. Sometimes you need all three. If you don't have the time, you're going to need more capital. And so working with buyers, I'm like, what are your goals with this business? We have a kickoff call before we even dive into the numbers, because I'm like, I need to know what your goals are, because we don't want to get to the end of due diligence and then you're like, oh, there's not enough money in this business for me to quit my job. You just spent $10,000, $20,000 on lawyers and accountants and all these things to get there. But I think is the reality for buyers might be missing, and they don't understand time, the time, the capital, and the energy into doing that. They think it's, well, let's just, set up an automated system and everything will run smoothly. But
Yeah.
it's either all three or, more money if you don't have the
Yes.
time kind of thing.
Yes.
So I think
Yep.
this is such a good conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for hours
Right.
because this
Forever.
is so critical. And I feel like
Yes.
people are just out here buying businesses because they feel
Yeah.
like it's a cool trend to get rich.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, wait. We got to understand, like, does this business even have enough cash flow for you to
Right.
support yourself and all of
Right.
your visions? And because that's
Absolutely.
key.
Absolutely.
And then really understanding what scaling actually is and not just
Yes.
hurry up and get me there, because
Exactly.
it's a multi-layer process. So I'm glad that,
Absolutely.
you exist in
Yes.
this world to help people do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I very much have enjoyed this
Yes.
conversation.
Me
I know we're
too.
kind of
Thank you.
running close on time, but
Yes.
I was like, I need to have her on
Yeah.
because I know that she knows
Thank
things
you.
that my
Yeah.
buyers just aren't familiar with. And so
Yes.
I feel like this
Thank
is such
you.
an important part of the conversation, and you're
Yes.
such a key player in
Yeah.
the success of these transitions, because like
Yes.
we've got billions in business value that's going to need to change hands over the next 10,
Yes.
15 years. With the
Yes.
boomers are retiring, these businesses need a new home.
Yes.
And I just don't want to see them fall apart because
Right.
people weren't prepared. They didn't ask enough questions, like you said.
Yes.
So
Ask the question. Yes.
right. So outside of that, is there anything else, kind of, last comments or suggestions, tips, and then let us know where to find you. So, because
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of my buyers and
Yeah.
people in the community could definitely
I'd
use your
love that.
services, and I'll link all your stuff too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I would say the big thing is exactly what you said, Shauna. Find someone like a Shauna if you decide to buy a business. Someone who is going to not only really understand and be expert at their craft, but take the time to understand who you are and what your goals are, and then speak the truth to you about what you say you want and what it's really going to take to get it. Because while it may not be what you want to hear, it is going to save you so much pain and effort and money down the line. So plan first, do your due diligence on who's helping you do due diligence so that you can do that process well, because it starts from that. It doesn't start when you walk in the door of that business you bought. It starts from that very first conversation with the person that's helping you do due diligence to decide when you're about to spend a ton of money to buy something that you think is going to give you something that it never had the capability to do. So my biggest piece of advice is how you start impacts how you finish. So start strong, ask the question, and get somebody who can advocate for you and walk along with you, who really knows what they're doing and has a real eye towards assisting you, because it's about you. They want to serve you. And then for me, to find me, the big thing about finding me is just the easiest thing is my website, laurelrutledge.com. And I'm in the process of revamping it, but you can find everything there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. If what you see isn't there, send me a note. You can connect with me on my website, because I'm updating now. So there's some stuff that's going to be moving around, but go to my website. You can see about me, and then just send me a note.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I have so much energy now. This was just invaluable. So many good nuggets in here for people. And you don't even have to be buying a business. This is just all like business. We just talked about that because that's where we landed, and that's kind of what I do. And we just, we overlap in those areas.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter if you've started a business and you're doing really well, but you want to take it to the next level. Everything here applies. There's no difference between whether you started it, whether you bought it, somebody gave it to you. Like the rules still apply. The success is still, will apply here. So anybody, I think, that's in the business world could benefit from this information and, all the nuggets that you shared. You shared so many really great things. I'm sitting here going, I can help, I need to, when I'm working with buyers, like remind them of this thing and this thing, and like, don't forget about the people,
right?
And the people and the P&L to the people to the product. Like, I love that so much. And a lot of people just like financial accounting. I don't care about any of that. I just want to focus on this. And it's like, no, honey, they all interconnect, and they all support each other. So, thank you so much. This was amazing. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was great.
Yeah.